Hello and welcome to Podcast of a Lincoln Geek. I'm your host, the podcaster general, the Dan Face. I'm joined by my regular friends and regular co-hosts. We have the Pete. Say hello, Pete.
Hello, Pete.
Classic opening there, Pete.
Yeah,
And we're joined by sorry, go ahead, Pete. Were you going to say something?
I need to work on a proper, more collector-based opening, as we've said before. But another fine podcast in my collection doesn't quite make as much sense.
It doesn't have physical form, does it? Unless
no.
Maybe we should print out the transcripts.
Maybe you should just go, excellent, or something
that
like that.
might creep people out, though, if they're listening to this.
I still quite like the hello, Pete. I think we need to get you that on a t-shirt.
Agreed, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
You may have already heard him speak, but I'm joined by my also friend and also co-host sometimes. We got the Chris. Hello, Chris.
Hello, everybody.
Very enthusiastic there. We're recording this on a Monday morning, so I'm surprised he's got that much energy.
Same.
Me too.
I don't know. I'm really tired.
And he doesn't even drink coffee anymore. Have you cut coffee out, Chris?
Yeah,
What?
I've been up it now nearly 4 weeks.
My God.
He's a madman.
So this is
Totally
natural energy.
decaf free.
Shocking revelation for our audience there. And our audience who have tuned into our little show about board games and random and geeky stuff. Thank you very much for listening to us just ramble on for about 20 to 30 minutes.
Yep.
And today's topic, it's one I thought of, it might be fun just to talk about because I think we've all been in this position, is how do you teach board games to new players? Do you like teaching games to new players? This is something you try and avoid. Do you always find yourself in the position of being the person that teaches the rules? And do you have any kind of tips and tricks that you find useful to help guide these new budding gamers to their full-fledged board gamer status? I guess you could consider, are you teaching it to like the audience as well? Are they completely new to board games completely? Or are they just kind of regular gamers and you've literally got a new game that you're trying to explain to them and you're the only one that's read the rules? That kind of thing. We can talk about anything like that. So I'm going to start with Chris. So Chris, what are your experiences with teaching new games? Do you like doing it?
I don't like doing it. I'll be completely honest.
That's fine.
The pressure is always there because let's face it, if you've got a new board game and you haven't had a chance to have kind of a pre-read through of it, you're doing a learning together. And I do have some tips for doing that because there is better ways of doing that. But no, I don't enjoy doing it. But if you work together doing it, then it's still good fun. So it doesn't take the fun away from learning a new board game.
I mean, one of my worst nightmares is trying to teach a new game as I'm reading the rules for the first time. Because I've tried to do that before. Like, I've got a game for a birthday present or something. And my friends at the time, they go, oh, let's play it now. I'm like, but I haven't read the rules. No, let's play it now. So we literally playing as, okay, so turn to page 14. Index 17A. It's a nightmare. It's a oh my goodness. What's that doing there, Chris? Just for our Patreon viewers, he is now flashing a board game randomly at the screen, which is what I played, so it's quite good.
Yeah. And it's shiny, so we can see our reflections in it as well.
It's very, very shiny. Still in its shrink wrap.
Not the shrink yet, but there's one to learn. But you've played it, so you can teach that one.
Oh, no pressure. I think it was George that actually read the rules to that one.
Yeah, it was George read the rules to that one.
But yes, that is one of my worst nightmares. I mean, I remember Game of Thrones, the board game. I love the game now, but we played it, and I think we played a maximum number of players, so 6 players. I was the only one that I was literally learning the game as I was trying to teach it.
Was I playing that session with you?
Maybe. I just know it lasted about 8 hours. People were getting really frustrated and bored. They were wandering off. It wasn't the best game experience. I'm surprised we played the game after that.
Yeah. I think it was. It was at your old house.
It might have been, yeah.
The old house, we're in the kitchen. Simon was disappearing off for, regular breaks.
It's possible, yeah.
Yeah,
I just remember that was my first time playing Game of Thrones board game. It was horrible because I was learning it as I was trying to teach it, which is just
and we were introducing it to people who wanted to play Battlestar Galactica. Thought I'd get it out there.
You've tried to teach people Battlestar?
Yeah. So, but no, it's an interesting thing, and teaching people a game is just one of those rites of passages that you have to do. What do you say, Pete?
Yeah.
How do you feel about the subject, Pete? Just before I go through what I usually do. How do you like teaching new games?
I just feel I struggle at teaching people things. Because oftentimes it'll be I'll be trying to explain something, then I'll get distracted or I'll forget a point, and then sort of like on the next page I go, oh no, I forgot to talk about X on the previous page. Where possible, I actually don't mind teaching people if I have other people around me that I can play with. Recently I played Space Base for my birthday with some friends a couple of weeks ago, and I was introduced to Space Base through my friends Leo and Colin, and you had Leo, Colin, and myself teaching my other friend Sarah, and I actually felt it went really, really well because I think all three of us we held back a little bit. Space Base isn't exactly the most competitive game because outside of the one card that decreases victory points, there isn't really any "haha, I attack you" abilities.
There's no take that mechanism.
Yeah, there's no take that mechanism.
You can't attack the other players.
Exactly, but I think that's what I like between the three of us, and I think admittedly Leo maybe taught it a bit more than I did. But it was a case of like, he'd be like, well, there's this card, it gives you this ability, there's this card, it gives you this ability, there's this card that gives you this ability. I recommend this card, personally speaking, but the choice is yours. And I think that, and my friend even came away from the game saying that she really enjoyed the game, and she appreciated how we didn't pull punches too much, but we didn't just go in there guns blazing. Yeah, Annihilator.
That's fine.
Sorry, go on.
That's fine, because I was going to go on to that as kind of a tangent. It's like when you're teaching new players a game, how much do you hold back? I mean, it's a shame George isn't in the conversation. I've long talked about how George eats newbies for breakfast, and it's a shame he's not here to defend himself. George does teach games pretty good, just in case you're listening, George.
He does.
He memorizes the rules to a frightening degree. It's kind of like...
Yeah. This is why he's our rules lawyer.
He's like the Rain Man of rules lawyers. He basically can scan the page. Johnny Five, memorize it all. Unfortunately, Mercy to the newbies, excuse me, it's not one of his finest qualities.
No, but also I don't want people to give me mercy just because I'm new to a game. I want to be able to win a game because I've been able to win it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
One thing I do find about playing new games and learning new games for the first time is if you are doing it in an actively live situation with other people rather than reading the rule book ahead of it, is to actually go through the rule book step by step. Break it down, follow the setup, start with the setup. Put all the pieces out with everyone there, because sometimes if you come into a room and the game's already set up and you're trying to learn it for the first time, going through the setup process and learning what things are called is really useful, because when you start talking about keywords and elements of the game, someone goes, well, that's that over here. I get that. Right, that makes sense. So they go here, right, okay, and then you do the player setup, and then you go through the phases together as a group. You break it down like that. It is the best way to teach it, in my humble opinion. That's an
interesting way. I haven't thought of doing that, really. So you're kind of explaining the components of the game and as you take it out of the box and set it up.
Yeah.
This is where the meeples live, and they do these actions over here, blah, blah, blah. That kind of thing. That's an interesting way of doing it.
I've actually had a friend who, he's been diagnosed with ADHD recently, and he often said that whenever we discussed board games, he always kind of lost interest during the explanation phase. He was very much let's just put the pieces on the table, you tell me what I can do on my turn, and we'll go from there. Yeah. And to be fair, when I've done that with him, particularly since recent diagnosis, which I think kind of helped us understand why he struggled with board games, or he's getting into board games, I should say. Because like I said, he was one of the people that came to my birthday, and I think we played Forbidden Sky, and I think he really enjoyed that. Where basically just say to him, okay, it's your turn, you can do this, this, and this, what do you want to do? And I think he really, really appreciated that. I think, with all due respect, Chris, I think if I were to maybe do that with him, he might tune out a bit too quickly. He might be going, can we just stop with this and just start playing? I don't get me wrong, I agree with Dan. I think it's a very, very good approach, but it maybe does depend on the person you're playing.
And you can do that even with that same method. So you can as you set it up, you just say, right, these are the components. This is everything that's involved with the game. You start with someone who has played it, maybe, that can help alleviate some of the that anxiety of not having played a game before, or having played the game before for others. And then by the time it comes around to them, they've seen 2 or 3 people that have already done it. and it makes it easier for them to understand because they have an opportunity to see something actually happening rather than sometimes trying to explain things in theory. Because when you're trying to, follow a rule book, and I'm very much a visual learner. I learn by doing. So reading a rule book is just the worst thing for me. And actually getting the game out, taking the components out, and going through elements is a game changer for me. It really is.
I mean, there's a reason why your catchphrase is "I don't understand" when they're just reading the rules out to you. You just see the glaze over. I mean, it's a good point you raised there, Pete. I think you do have to consider your audience, really, who you're trying to teach the games to. You've got to. If I was teaching games to my family members, for example, I would do it in a totally different approach as if I was trying to teach a game to you guys.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. And just to go back to an earlier thing I mentioned about teaching newbies, I do believe in kind of going on kind of tutorial mode. That's what I tend to call it, where I never let them win, but I don't utterly destroy them. Perhaps I play a bit subpar, just kind of hold my punches back a bit, or perhaps I go like if they move a certain piece to a location that gives them a weakness, I'd be like, aha, like little paperclip. You appear to you've exposed a weakness here. Are you sure you would like to do that? I give them like a little warning. I do give people the option to switch off tutorial mode if they want to just to. But for the first game, I never let them win. But I feel it's important for them to have fun because if you just destroy them on the first game, they probably don't want to play with you again.
I know exactly. But also it's about having fun, and if at any point something's not fun, then what's the point of doing it?
Yeah, exactly. You want everyone to have fun. You don't want just it's not like a tournament. You don't need to like brutally crush the opposition and hear the what's the Conan quote?
To crush your enemies, hear the lamentations of the women.
Exactly.
To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentations of the women.
Yes, you don't need to teach games like Conan.
So I got slightly distracted because there's a band I quite like with Austrian Death Machine, and they have a parody of that quote in one of their songs, and I nearly quoted it, and I'm like, that's not the right quote.
But I've heard of that band. They do, it's all their songs are based on like Arnie lyrics. Is that right?
They are, they're all based on Arnie.
I've heard them one go like, "Get to the chopper."
That's classic. That is
Get to the chopper.
But there's really, really good one. I think, unfortunately, I think the band disbanded because the lead singer got accused of something. I need to double check what. It's a shame, really. But it's a shame. They did 3 good out. They did 3 albums, and they're really, really good. I think what is it? And I feel a few of them even like sample actual quotes from the films, like. There's one from Total Recall that has like the old granny. She goes, "I can pick anyone to choose. I pick Arnie's character. That guy's one mean mother," and then it cuts there and just goes straight into a fantastic guitar riff and drum beat. It's fun.
Fair enough.
It's really, really awesome. Anyway,
you've been listening to our podcast about random Austrian death metal bands.
I actually was thinking earlier. Actually, when it comes to sort of teaching new gamers, I actually have what I like to call the predator mindset. Where, as per the film, when the woman picks up whose name I forget, picks up the gun, Arnie knocks it out of her hand and says, "Don't carry a weapon. It's no sport for the predator when you're unarmed." And that's kind of how I view sort of teaching board games to players, where I want it to be sporting. I don't want to go in and just absolutely decimate them. But I also do want it to be enjoyable for myself and for any other player, because if we had a situation like I had a few weeks ago, where it's experts and one newbie, I don't want it to be an absolute slog and a boring game for the experts, just as much as I don't want it to be a curb stomping for the newbie.
Yeah, that's a good point, though. I mean, if you are playing like a multiplayer game with several people at different experience levels, I do try and focus mainly on the expert players. I try and take them out and give the newbies room to grow, unless the newbies start dominating. If they pick it up really quickly and are starting to win, then I avert my attention onto them. But I always try and focus on the more experienced players first.
Same.
Can I ask you a question about rule books here? Because of course, when it comes to teaching a board game, it depends on how good a rule book actually is. Now, I've got some great examples, and I've got some really bad examples of where a board game, the rule book's been amazing and the rule books have not been so amazing.
Sure.
Do you guys have any examples? I'll go last quite happily.
I'm trying to think. I know there are some infamously bad rule books out there.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I can't really think of any. I'm sure I've got a couple in my collection. I know people didn't like the Firefly rule book. I remember there being a bit of people complaining about that. Even though once you've played the game once or twice, you don't really need the rule book anymore.
Yeah.
No, but still.
XCOM didn't come with a rule book, so it's all on an app you have to download.
So sometimes, that can be frustrating for people because some people like to physically hold something.
Yeah, I like to physically read and
be able to proper, get your head into a rule book. Not that you should read it that close.
I suppose.
Smell.
And if the rule book's like a giant dusty tome, several pages big, then that can be a bit off-putting as well.
Well, yeah, it is.
I really appreciate when they do like a summary, like a quick reference rule book as well. So you've got the full rule book, and then you just got like a reference rule book, just like a quick. You could just quickly search for a particular section, which is pretty good.
Yeah. Pete, do you have any examples?
I'm just trying to think of a few examples that I have. Nothing really springs to mind for me personally. I know the Star Wars game that we played on May the 4th, I was kind of scratching my head a little bit. It was the blind leading the blind to a degree, because I was trying to explain to you and Gregor, and I'm like...
Yeah, Rebellion.
Rebellion, that's the bad joke. I'm like, what does X mean? I think it means X, and I think it was about halfway through the game that it all suddenly started clicking for me. But I put that down more to... I put it down more to my own flaws rather than anything to do with the rulebook. I'm sure Dan will probably be screaming at me about how wrong
I was twitching quite a lot by watching you on Twitch. I must admit, that is a tough one to play.
I've got some examples though.
Go on, go for it, Chris.
So one that was really bad, and I remember this is basically where's it gone? Where's it gone? Have I got it on the shelf still? I have got it somewhere. It's around. But the this is an example. Okay, this is one that's kind of where it's good but not so good. So Sentinels of the Multiverse is a great game. It's basically a graphic novel series that's been turned into a deck building card game, and the rulebook looks great. It looks like it's designed like a comic book, which is really nice. It's got some great examples. So you've got a nice summary of table and summary of contents, which is important. Okay, but it's got nice little breakdowns where you've got visual graphics and it explains components really well. Okay, so great examples of what's good. And then also in the same section, again breaks it down really nicely, very visual with short snippets of information, which is great. But then you get things like this, where it's all condensed up into big blocks of text, and it's a bit overwhelming and a bit off-putting. Still has some great visuals, but when you've got pages upon pages of text, it can be a bit much for people. And I think there's a fine line, I personally find, between text and images with examples of play or example of something they're trying to explain. Helps, because sometimes some people don't have a very good mind's eye, and trying to visualize what a text is trying to convey. So having a visual element for those people who may not be so good at that mind's eye is really important. And this is very, very, very kind of wordy towards the end. They have some examples, and then they have none. It's like 8 pages front and back of just text, and also a very large FAQ, which always says to me, if there's a large FAQ, they've not written the rules well enough to explain. And you've had FAQs come up during playtesting.
I've had the testers ask a lot of questions about things like, what did you mean by this?
Yeah,
put it in the FAQ.
But it doesn't stop a game from being good.
No.
So I don't want the designers of Sentinels of the Multiverse think I'm just picking on this. I'm just using this as an example. But what is brilliant is when they have summary turn sequences and useful game terms on the back of the rulebook.
Yeah.
I mean, we could probably have a separate podcast just on the our favorite and least favorite rule books. Can we go through our collection?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're back to the famous ones where there is examples of really bad rule books. Was the Robinson Crusoe board game? While it did extremely well, it was renowned that the first edition rule book was so bad. Paul Grohl, I believe it's the chap's name. I can't remember if it's right now. I'm probably going to get absolutely lynched by the board game community. But he was brought in to redesign and rewrite the rule book because it was that bad.
Yeah, I've kind of heard of that kind of thing before.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
so,
it's definitely relevant to the topic. I mean, if you like, sorry, go ahead, Pete.
I see. It's not actually sort of like slight tangent from what Chris said. I actually really like the space-based rule book because for those who haven't played space base even. Sorry, I was thinking about dinner. If you a lot of the cards have these very, very powerful abilities, but they're often they're slightly complex, and it's not easy to fit that on a card that's I don't know what the dimensions are, but basically like imagine a traditional playing card that's like about a quarter wide. So at the back of the rule book, it has like, you know, examples of some of these cards and saying, you know, this symbol means this. This card means that means that. And I found it to be a really, really good example of just giving players like, you know, a quick reference. So, for example, I think because I was actually teaching the game to Gregor on Saturday as well when I played some games with him, and it was a case of like, oh, what does that one do? Or give me 1 minute. Oh, it's on, you know, like the back half of the rule book. Flick, flick, flick. There it is. Right, here's a more elaborate version of it. And because a lot of crossover, they've only got like 2 or 3 examples of each one. But that's enough that you can then go, okay, if this card means this one and this card means this one, and this third card must be somewhere between the two ability wise. Okay, cool, I can carry on. And I found that to be really, really handy because I'm some of the old saying, a picture tells 1,000 words. So if you have like, you know, a picture of the card or a picture of what it does, and with like maybe some slight context around it, that I think is fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. I can think of other examples of like Bang, because the cards themselves don't have any words on them; they just have symbols.
Yes.
so everyone's got like a little reference card in front of them to say what the symbols are. So if you've got like the bullet symbol, you go, or the hat symbol, you can immediately see what it means in front of you, which is clever. Yeah, it's good points. I mean, if you like now, just to cover kind of what I do really with teaching new games, and it makes me look really weird if people watch me do it, is I actually have a demo game by myself. I set up all the pieces by myself on the table and I play against myself. I basically read the rules right. So this person can go here. And then like a crazy person, if someone's watching me out the window, I'll then go to the other side of the table. Okay, I can carry though. So basically I have so many epic...
So you're like Sheldon when he plays 3-person chess by himself.
I mean, it's my greatest opponent, myself. I also... If I read the rule book, I mean, especially in a minute because I'm so tired with raising all these damn kids, it takes a little while to sink in sometimes. So I actually find it easier to watch a let's play or kind of a run through the board game. I need to see the board game go through once before I'm comfortable teaching it to other people.
Yeah, I do love it when these game designers and producers have their own videos alongside a rule book. And I've seen it where they break it down into sections. So rather than being one great big massive video, because sometimes you ain't got time to sit there for 30 minutes, but you've got time to sit there and watch the video on the production phase or the game setup. And breaking the videos up into, you know, easy manageable little chunks is really useful, because sometimes you may only need to know, how the production phase works or the cleanup phase, whichever, phases the games have.
There could be just a bit of the rules you find really confusing. So if you can just jump straight to that section, that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, but I just like seeing a turn actually play out. So basically, so I'm not learning to play it as I do it.
And we were learning to play Brass Birmingham.
Oh yeah.
Friday night.
Learning as you were playing. Oh, bet that was messy.
Yeah. It was good. I think we've got it down now.
it's tricky to. I think I've only played that a couple of times myself. I played the Lancashire one, I think.
Right,
But
okay.
this is basically the same game.
Henry brought
yeah.
it down to for board games night on a Friday. Whenever we get, sometimes we get a chance.
That's pretty cool. Well, anyway, assuming I'm now comfortable to teach the game, what I usually do is when I'm teaching it to new players is like start off with a bit of not go into like the story of the game, but I try and set the theme. I go like, okay, so we're humans on Battlestar Galactica. I had to chuck it in there. Or it's the London Whitechapel, 1892, Jack the Ripper. I do a little setting. Most of us are playing as the cops, or most of us are the humans, that kind of thing. But some of us are secretly evil Cylons. Basically, I just try and set a big picture for whoever playing, so they get the. And then I go through the main goal of the game, how you win. So this is a victory point game. This is a domination game. You win by scoring X number of points, or you win by conquering this much land. And how do you do this? Well, you can gain points by winning fights or claiming objectives. I just basically do like a very basic overview. And then I like to have a like a dummy round. So basically, everyone's got their cards.
Yeah.
I give them their roles or whatever, depending on the game. And then I'll be like, I'll be player one. For my first action, I want to, I don't know, let's do settlers. I want to get some sheep. So I go, well, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then this gives me this action, blah, 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 which makes this happen. And then we go to the next player and I guard him through it, that kind of thing, until everyone's done at least one turn each. And then I take the training wheels off and see how it goes from there. That's my general rough kind of guideline. That's what I usually do. I teach quite a lot of games. I'm usually the guy that reads the rules, along with George.
yes. So you were the original rules lawyer before.
I was. I got usurped by Georgia.
Joined the fray. That is the Darryl Lincoln Geek crew.
Pretty much.
But yeah, you two, between the two of you, are the better at it than myself.
I used to do the top tips, didn't I? For like the learning.
Yes.
And my top tip is don't forget about this part of the game, because quite often this is what makes you win.
Kind of. And before I forget, that gentleman was called Paul Grogan, who rewrote the rule book. My brain wouldn't let me, get it, forget it and get it wrong. So sorry, Paul, if you're listening.
And we actually have a special guest presenter for this episode. We are joined by Chat GPT, an AI.
Hey, welcome, Chat GTP.
I know. I've actually asked the AI, our AI overlords, how they would teach games to new players. So I could quickly read out their summary.
Yeah, go on then. Let's see what Chat GTP says.
Just to finish it, let's load it back up. So, I mean, I haven't read this beforehand. I was going to surprise myself with this, so we'll see how much it agrees with me. Okay. So, step one, start with the theme and objectives. Yay, ChatGTP. Go, G. Begin by introducing the game's theme and setting, then clearly state the main objective of the game. Yep. Use clear and concise language. Avoid jargon. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah. You don't want to chuck all the kind of the various terms yet. You basically want to just call them victory points, call them, meeples. Don't go into like their specific class or anything yet. Provide a game overview. Yeah. Divide the rules into sections. Yeah, you could do that. I would rather go through like the actual dummy round, just round by round. I guess your mileage may vary with that. Use visual aids. So this kind of goes to you, Chris. If the game comes with a rulebook, use it as a visual aid to explain component setup and certain rules. Provide concrete examples. So illustrate how different actions are performed. Walk players through a few sample turns. Yeah. Checks out. Highlight important rules. Hey, Dan's top tip. Encourage questions. So tell people they are allowed to ask you questions.
Yes, there's no stupid questions.
Link rules to familiar concepts. I mean, we've got a bit of repetition here. Focus on the basics first. Yeah. Come on, AI. Come on, you can do better than that. Play a practice round. We've already covered this, AI. God. They're not going to take over the world just yet, are they?
This makes us realise that we can get things right.
Pretty much. Be enthusiastic and engaging. Yeah, it sounds like you actually like the game. That is useful in teaching it. Avoid overwhelm. Yes, do not throw too much information at the new players, because then you will get the eyes glossing over effect. Definitely agree with that. And the last one with Chat GPT is summarize at the end. Yeah. Makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I feel we kind of covered most of those anyway. So
I
AI,
think we need to design our own board game AI.
Yeah, what, to teach rules to people? What would be its purpose?
Yeah,
Just for that.
well, it'd be its purpose to teach rules, find board game, find examples. You know, it'd be quite cool.
That could be another project for you, Chris. You could do that, can't you?
Wouldn't it just be like an AI?
I've got enough projects ongoing. You know, there you go, Dan. You can make that. You can do
I'm making
game
kids.
AI.
I'm making kids. That's what I'm doing. Pete, you can have it, buddy.
I've got other projects
Pete doesn't
on
have
the
any
go.
babies, no.
Nah. Well,
Bring a new AI to life.
Isn't it basically just like an AI George though? We just
AI George.
Just got to download George's brain into the computer and then have it run on his rule story logic.
Oh, that was scary.
That AI would totally wipe out humanity, and you know it.
Would.
Love you, George, if you're listening.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I feel like that's a good point to end the conversation there. Unless you guys got anything else you want to chuck about teaching new games to new players?
I think we've covered it quite well. Other than to say, I prefer learning games with you, Mr. Dan.
Oh, that's very kind.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I like Dan's tutorial mode. I like tutorial mode, and often I play a game and I wish there was an audio book of Dan talking through this rule book.
You need an AI Dan, do you? To like pop up.
We need
you
an
appear
AI
to be
Dan.
trying to get victory points. Would you like? And sorry, Pete, were you going to say something there for the summary?
I think the only thing I would maybe say is maybe just like flag any potential beginner traps or any sort of oversights. I think because I think in the Game of Thrones board game you mentioned, I think it's been said before, you need ideally either 3 or 6 players because otherwise portions of the board are basically free game to other players. And I think you said before you've had a thing like a 4-player game where I think the player on like the lowest point of the map could just dive into the unguarded area and just like collect the 7 castles quite easily. So I think if you're aware of any such oversight in a game, I can't remember if it was either Chris or another friend of mine. Actually, funny enough, also called Chris. I think there was a Harry Potter board game where there was a card in the deck that basically was the "you win" card.
Yeah.
I think regardless of the context, and I think he said that he'd always take that out. He'd always make a note of it, but he'd always take it out the deck. Sure. So I think if you know of some kind of oversight or exploit, I think it's probably a good thing to flag it. Just so that people are aware of it and people can either guard against it or not necessarily. Like this might be more like actual gameplay things, like maybe don't exploit it, for example.
Sure, I think that ties into kind of good sportsmanship, doesn't it?
Yeah, that might
kind
be
of like this aspect of the game is a little bit dodgy, so maybe don't do this if possible. Like I do that with Battlestar in a way. I'm like, if you are a human, please don't help the Cylons because you think it's funny because the game is hard enough for the humans as it is. That kind of thing.
One other thing,
we all know someone who did that.
Oh yeah.
One other thing, actually, I think if a game like say someone's playing Magic or a similar game where people got to keep their cards close to their chest, I will encourage people if they're not sure what a card means to basically just show me the card, and then I will go, okay, this is what this. Because I think I was playing the Magic the Game Night with a friend of mine, and I think he was unfamiliar with the term pacifism. So, and he had to play on the white deck, and he's like, "Oh, what does this mean?" I said, "Oh, basically pacifism means this. This basically disables one of my characters." And he's like, "Right, okay, I play that then." And and I was totally cool with that. Other than he took out my strongest monster that way because he didn't know what it meant, and I wanted to be fair. I knew what that card meant, so of course I would play it. So it's only fair that he has the same knowledge.
Yeah, you've got to just be objective, even if it goes against you as you're playing the game. So
you'd
be like, I've got a card, but I don't know what it does. I'll be like, I'll forget what team I'm on, and I'll have a quick look. All right, this is a really good card. If you do this, it'll destroy me. There you go. And he goes, okay, I'll play it. Hey, well done.
And I think because of the nature of what we do with regards to reviewing board games, we as a group are better at that. I would definitely say, because I remember when I was playing Forges of Ravenshire with Sam just 2 Fridays ago. It was a case of, not sure what this does. Okay, so we figured it out together, and then we soon figured it out, and then we were like, okay, that makes sense now. So sometimes you just have to work through something together if you don't quite understand something, and just forget that you are just playing a game that's something that's fun.
Yeah, you just take off the competitive hat for a minute.
Yeah,
because you want everyone to have fun. That's
because there's always someone in your gaming group who is competitive.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like that's a good end to the conversation there, guys. So I'd like to thank you both for your comments. As always, I'd like to thank everyone at home or walking the dog, doing the dishes, whatever you're doing. Thank you for listening to our little show about board games and random geeky things. We've actually got one of the people that's actually competent at doing the plug, so I'm going to chuck it to him. Go for it, Chris.
Okay, so if you haven't already checked out the website, then please, of course, head over to doalg.co.uk. The website is there for you to go and have a look at, so please do. We have lots of regular reviews that hit the website each Friday. And of course, we also have competitions. We have one live at the moment as well. We're doing a giveaway of Micro Macro. So go on, head on over there and check that out. And if you want to win some extra mysteries to solve, then feel free to enter. You do require the base game for that, though.
Just to clarify, that competition is live as of mid-July. That's where we are when we're actually recording this, just in case you're listening to the far off future.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, we're going to be doing more going forward as well. So if you've missed out on that one, do check out the website, because there may be something else that's running as you're watching this. Of course, we've also got the Let's Talk Board Game show, which we do on a regular each month, along with our weekly podcasts, which you're listening to right now, or watching the video podcast. And of course, if you've actually made a game and you'd like us to review it, then head on to the website, because you can also request it there as well.
Excellent. Well said, Chris. Well, thank you very much again, everyone, and always be gaming. Bye.
Keep gaming. Bye.
Keep gaming.